500 years after its publication, The Dream of Poliphilo is still considered one of the most beautiful in the history of printing. For the design of the fonts it uses, for the initials, and above all, for the 172 woodcuts by an unknown author that illustrate the story. The copy held by the University of Seville, which lacks the preliminaries, comes from the professed house of the Society of Jesus, and possibly belonged to Juan de la Salle, Bishop of Bona. If, as it seems to be the case, the letter B in manuscript next to the seal of the professed house is his. The Dream of Poliphilo is a work shrouded in enigmas. The authorship is a mystery, as the author's name does not appear in any of the Aldine editions, hidden in an acrostic in the 38 initials that open the book's chapters, that together form the phrase Poliam frater Franciscus Colvamna Peramavit. That means Fray Francesco Colonna intensely loved Polia. Currently, there are 2 candidates for its authorship, a member of the prestigious Roman family of the Colonna, and the most likely theory, a licentious Dominican friar born in Venice in 1433 and died in 1527. The title is also an enigma, because the title by which it is commonly known, The Dream of Poliphilus, is an incorrect translation of the original title. Hypnerotomachia polyphili, a neologism made from the Greek words hypno, sleep, eroto, love, machia, battle, and the Latin polii philos, lover of Polia. Therefore, a more accurate translation of the title would be Battle of Love in a Dream of Polia's Lover. And the novel's own interpretation and that of its characters is an enigma. According to the colophon found at the end of the book, this edition was finished printing in Venice. In December of 1499, Teobaldo Mannucci, Aldo Manuscio the Elder, the most famous of those humanist printers that were so abundant in the early decades of printing. It is to him that we owe the introduction or consecration of many elements that would continue in printing for the next 3 centuries. The printing press arrived in Italy not many years after its invention in Mainz in 1454. And soon, Venice became the most important center for the printing industry and the book market. Aldo Amaluzio is significant for many reasons. He was, as we've said, a prominent figure in humanist circles. He translated some classics that he printed himself. Significant for the history of books, he was also among the first to print pocket editions, and in promoting the use of the humanistic or Roman round lettering that would become widespread, that would quickly replace the Gothic letter. For the printing of Poliphilo's Dream, a Roman typeface was used. Designed by Francesco Grifo, a revised version from the one that Mannuccio himself had used a few years earlier in another of his prints, the Aetna by Pietro Bembo.
When in the Latin epigram that appears in the preface, Andrea Moroni, who could actually be Colonna himself, asks the muse about the book's author, she replies that she cannot reveal it and exclaims,
"O you who among all mortals are the only happy one, Polia, living even in death. Moreover, even better. While Poliphilo lies deep in sleep, you remain awake on the lips of learned men."
A statement that sows 2 doubts. Is Polia dead or alive? Is reality just a dream? Or, on the contrary, is the dream the true reality? Moreover, it specifies that it is aimed at educated men. That is, only those initiated into esoteric erotic syncretism will understand the work. The mystery of a narrative that refuses to be classified using a bold language remains hidden. an experiment where Colonna infuses Italian prose, inspired by Boccaccio, with Latinisms and neologisms from Latin and Greek, vernacular, Hebrew, Arabic terms, and Egyptian hieroglyphic writing. The central theme is a metaphor for the search for Platonic love, represented by the search of Poliphilo, who loves many things, for his beloved Polia, multitude, through a true dreamlike journey of initiation, which symbolically culminates in the presence of Venus through the 2 rings given by the goddess, and with the 2 golden arrows shot by Cupid. The novel is divided into 2 books. In the first, Poliphilo recounts how he falls asleep for a few moments on a spring dawn and dreams of embarking on a journey that will lead him to discover magnificent architectural structures, ancient ruins, enigmas, hieroglyphs, mysterious inscriptions, crossing impassable places and encountering monstrous creatures, mythological and allegorical beings, described in detail. In his dreams, nymphs lead him to the cosmological palace of Euterolide and ask him to declare his love for Polia. Then, guided by Telemia, the will, and Logistilla, the reason, he comes to a mountain where there are 3 doors from which he must choose one. Above them, 3 inscriptions are carved in Hebrew, Greek, Latin, and Arabic. On the left, one can read Glory of God. On the right, World's Glory, and in the center, Mother of Love. Every door leads to 3 realms of reality: the divine, the human overwhelmed by love, and the cosmic. Poliphilo chooses the central one, that of Venus, leading to the realm of earthly love, a reflection of the heavenly. The nymphs fade away, and Polia appears in the ethereal form of a nymph, so he cannot recognize her, which leads him to a marvelous temple where the priestess awaits them, and where Polia finally reveals herself. Then, on a ship piloted by Cupid, the couple arrives at the island of Cythera. There, in a magnificent amphitheater, is Venus, and the couple marries with the blessing of the goddess and her son. Later, some nymphs urge Polia to share her lineage and how she fell in love with Poliphilo. Starts here, the second part of the book, where the youths take turns narrating their mutual falling in love. First, Polia talks about her noble origins and how Poliphilo fell in love with her. But she, affected by the plague, made a vow of chastity to Diana. One day, the young man sees her praying in the temple and declares his love. She disdainfully rejects him, and as she flees in terror, she sees him die. Back home, follow the nurse's advice and return to the temple, where you find Poliphilo, not dead, but in a second sleep. After new stories from Poliphilo to the priestess, and from Polia to the nymphs about their love affair, Polia crowns her beloved with a garland of flowers, and the lovers remain alone talking about love, while Polia hugs him tightly. She vanishes, and Poliphilo wakes up cursing the sun that stole his sweet dream. One of the things about the Hypnerotomachia, it's just one of those pieces that, besides the value they hold in themselves, they have a visible and lasting influence on the art of the following centuries. And we are going to see some examples of that influence. The one with the elephant, of which several replicas are known in Italy. The one with the gardens. Perhaps the most interesting case being the beautiful garden of Bomarzo, the one with Giorgione's sleeping Venus.
Not far from the horse of unhappiness. Suddenly a mighty elephant made of stone blacker than obsidian appeared before me, glistening with saurian and silver granite scattered and frequent like a sparkling dust on the stone. The proud hardness enhances the translucent brightness. So any object that happened to appear right at that point was reflected, except where the metal had sprayed its greenish rust. This happened because at the top of its great back, it carried a wonderful bronze chair with the straps well secured around its monstrous bulk. Among these striking ties, fastened with buckles of the same stone, it had a square base of the same size as the obelisk placed on top of it. So the weight and the perpendicular, that it had no air vacuum underneath. For if it had been hollow inside, it would not have been solid or durable. The four-sided support was finely carved on its 13 faces with Egyptian characters. The monstrously worked back with magnificent precision, right on the chair, perfectly decorated with many stamps, bolts, and engraved stories, held a Laconian green stone obelisk, well-set, ancient green porphyry.
We found an elephant very similar to the one in the Hypnerotomachia on the facade of Santa Corona in Vicenza, carved in 1550, another replica in Rome, at the so-called Pulcian della Minerva, what Ercole Ferrata did in 1667 in Minerva Square, based on Bernini's design, and, above all, the elephant in volcanic stone that crowns the so-called elephant fountain in the cathedral square of Catania. The influence of the Hypnerotomachia on the beautiful garden known as Sacro Bosco or Park of the Monsters can also be seen. Piero Ligorio built it in 1547, in March, for Prince Pierfrancesco Orsini. If we consider the park from an esoteric perspective, we might say that whoever visits the sacred grove must walk through, like Polifilo, an initiatory journey in which, starting from the lowest level, as one ascends, one encounters various monsters and monuments that provide the necessary knowledge to reach enlightenment in the Temple of Eternity. Another clear trace of the Polifilo is found in the Sleeping Venus, one of the last paintings of a painter from the Venetian school, Giorgione, 1477 to 1510, to whom only 6 paintings are certainly attributed. This is how Colonna describes the nymph who undoubtedly inspired the painting.
The beautiful nymph was sleeping comfortably, lying on a spread-out cloth, which, cleverly rolled under the head, served as a pillow, while an edge adequately concealed what should be hidden. Lying on the right side, her right arm bent, cheek resting on the open hand that softly supported her head, the other arm free and limp, stretched along her left side, hand open halfway up her young thigh.
If we look at the woodcut of the sleeping nymph and recall the goddess's description, we see both figures resemble each other in all its particulars. Except that the nymph's sex is covered by a canvas, while Giorgione's Venus is the hand. The influence of Hypnerotomachia goes beyond Italy, reaching Spain, where we discovered their footprint in the enigmas carved into the windows of the old library at the University of Salamanca, as well as to France and to England. Here in England, the poet Algernon Charles Swinburne, in his unfinished youthful chronicle about Tibaldeo or Tibalde, 1861, offers a description of a sleeping Lucretia Borgia, which is undeniably taken from the fragment we read about the sleeping nymph regarding Giorgione. And Aubrey Beardsley drew inspiration from it for his unfinished Under the Hill. an erotic novel based on the Tannhäuser legend, which is nothing but an uninterrupted succession of descriptions of magnificent objects. English artists turn not only to the hypnerotomachia for book ideas, not just for buildings, but also for furniture, fabrics, and paintings, like John Ruskin, William Morris, Edward Burne-Jones, and Dante Gabriel Rossetti, who owned an Aldine edition and considered it a very mystical book. And lastly, its influence returns to Spain in the 40s of the last century through Salvador Dali, and in later works, like the various space elephants he created.